Hey guys, have some coffee, have some tea, have whatever you like to drink with me while we talk about workplace toxicity. I have just encountered that again recently. I've encountered a lot of workplace toxicity over the years. This place, though, it's been a slow build. I work at an adult store. For those of you who have followed me for a while, you know that. I've been there for 11 months, right at 11 months now. Started mid November of last year and took the job because it was not like other tourist jobs I had where there was always toxic elements, a lot of toxic elements like hotels, tourist attractions. There's a lot of drama in these places, constant drama. Oftentimes there's management that's also toxic, a lot of narcissism, a lot of sleeping around with this person and that person, and there's a lot of conflict. And then dealing with the customers too. You get a lot of customers that are entitled, a lot of rudeness. I'm not going to say every customer's like that, but there's a lot of that element as well. Where in the adult store, I was attracted to that for a few reasons I've discussed before. Because one, I was trying to find a place that I would feel comfortable exploring with my gender dysphoria, to be able to explore more of my feminine side, my feminine traits. And this environment was safe for really exploring that. They are very friendly there to, I guess you could say, the queer community, LGBTQ, trans, whatnot. It's a very friendly environment for that. This particular store and this company seems to be friendly for that. So that was one thing, but also it's laid back for the most part. You work by yourself, and I had never done that before in a retail environment. You don't ever have a ton of customers. You may have 7 or 8 at a time, and they consider that busy, which can be a little problematic because shoplifting, which I'll get around to, because this is part of what has become toxic in this workplace. So where I have had other jobs that could be somewhat toxic from the beginning, or you start working there and within a month you notice all this toxic behavior, this job wasn't like that. It was pretty stable at first, the environment. There was an assistant manager, the GM. I was hired in 3 to 4 days a week, to where that's good for my mental health. I can live off of that. So I signed on for that. I said, yeah, I'm good with working 3 or 4 days a week, which is something the general manager wanted. But what's happened over time is things have shifted. The energy has shifted, and the place has become more and more unstable. So we opened up another store, and our general manager started working over there. The company didn't get another general manager. They started having him just work both stores. So that shorted us, and then we couldn't keep other employees. The assistant manager quit. There was conflict she was constantly having with the GM. And there's some things that I saw her do that could be a little toxic. How she would lecture guests on certain things that were a little unnecessary. She had little tics about her that could be a little too OCD, but at the same time, she showed up to work every day. She did all of her work tasks. She was very dependable. So looking back, if I was to weigh the pros and the cons, he was probably better off with her. But he was so glad when she left that he did nothing but talk bad about her. Everything she did was bad. But after she left, we could not get decent people. So what happened was, hired a couple of people, they wouldn't stay, they quit. We ended up getting a woman to take her place that we think was stealing. She was only there a couple of weeks, but we think she was possibly stealing. She might have even been taking stuff out with the trash, stealing it. She's obsessively taking the trash out. And she had a guy just hanging out in the store with her, which is a no. That's a no-no. So she ended up quitting, though. And then we got another woman that we smell alcohol on when she works. Her eyes sometimes will be all bloodshot. Sometimes she's loopy. We think she's drinking consistently on the job. And you'll come in there. I work night shifts. I'll come in there to replace her. Part of the lights are not on in the store. She's playing her own music through the iPod of the company radio, which the company has their own music and their own commercials they like to play. Also through the radio, they play loss prevention clips, like clips that say loss prevention in progress, that sort of thing. She's playing her own music, playing football games through the company radio. So all of this is going on, and the GM, he's aware of a lot of things, but nothing's really being done. The thing is, they can't really keep people or get good people because the pay is kind of low. It's lower than I would say what the average is. But again, for me, I have low expenses, so it works for me. But with somebody with a family, kids, say they have a house payment, car payment, all that stuff, you couldn't just work there. I don't have a lot of that stuff, so I can do it. But they get a lot of people to apply there bottom of the barrel because of what they offer. And there's no benefits. I mean, there's no vacation. You can ask for time off, but there's no vacation. And there is insurance, but I don't buy into that. I'm not going to get in the weeds on that, but I just think a lot of insurance in our country, in the United States, is a scam. Just they take you for so much money, but I digress on that. But getting back into the workplace, so we get these employees, and it's chaotic because of their behavior. They're either quitting or doing these types of behaviors. So anyway, what happens is now things start to get worse as time goes on. It's demoralizing. You know, you see these behaviors going on. You're coming into a store that's running this way. You're having to correct these behaviors behind somebody else. And this person that's drinking also has messed up money and other things. So the GM doesn't seem to be doing much. The regional manager is aware, but nothing's happening to really correct the situation. And what I have found is when this kind of thing happens in other workplaces, like say there's any kind of toxicity over time, you kind of get demoralized in your own work ethic. There's probably exceptions where some people can plow along, do their work great no matter what, but I think a lot of people get demoralized, and I do too, you know. So you start slacking off on some of your stuff because you're just like, well, what's the use? I'm not recognized. I've had top sales there consistently for a long time, probably a few months or so. I've been recognized once, but other than that, I'm not really recognized for anything because we also make commission on top of an hourly. So what happens is now there's a person that works on my off nights, and she was going to quit. So we needed to hire another person. In fact, what happens, we hired 2 more people to work. One, the manager's trying to replace this woman who drinks on the day shift. So I train this new girl. I train her a few nights. And, well, I want to say I train her 4 nights. And what happens is we also have a lot of theft in the store. So while I'm training her, some theft happens on my shift. and you don't know when it's happening really. So people do a lot of various things in there to steal. It's a big store. Generally, you work by yourself, but this particular incident happened while I was training this new girl. So basically what happened was a couple of people came in, and then another guy came in behind them. And a lot of times people will work together, but you don't really know at the time they're working together. And it still can't be proven, but they probably were. So what happens is the couple is split up. They're picking up items. They'll ask you questions about the items, like they're really interested in buying them. Then the other guy asked me questions, and he's got me pulled off to the side, asking for things for his wife in the store. And I think what was happening looking back on it is he's probably distracting me, but you can't prove that. People ask questions all the time. We're instructed to go and talk to them about the products and try to sell them the products. I mean, we're not loss prevention. So, I mean, we're trying to work in the store and sell stuff. So what happens is these other two people put their stuff back. The guy tells me he don't want to buy anything until he talks to his wife. He leaves. And the two people, the one guy's talking to me and the new girl, and the other girl's got her back to me in front of a rack where there's a bunch of little items. It's likely she stole some of those items, and they stole a couple of other things, but her back's to me. I was looking at her, but I mean, you couldn't see what she was doing at the time. This was all reviewed later on camera. So what happened was they eventually leave, and I got suspicious of their whole behavior. So I go looking around, and I find an empty box of an expensive toy that they had in their hand. Yeah, the box was empty. They stole this item. It's like a $150 item. Then there's a couple other items they had in their hand. I noticed, okay, they're missing. So I was like, okay, I can do one or two things here, because there's been a couple of incidents in the store where the manager, the GM, he's acted funny about a couple of things. I had reported to him before, like he either does nothing about what you report to him, or he will kind of turn it around on you. He'll look for whatever fault you did, apparently something you did that wasn't enough in whatever situation. If you report something to him, I see it as a toxic behavior, because you're trying to do the right thing by the company and bring attention to something going on, and then it gets turned around. Well, what could you have done? Not to say maybe there's sometimes something as an employee you could do better, but to always want to turn it around and not look for where else the problem may lie, I think is an issue. So I was reluctant to report this to him. I was reluctant to say, hey, go back and look at the camera at this timestamp. I was just going to defect the items. I thought maybe I'll just defect the items, and a lot of times we find stuff stolen, we don't know when it was stolen. The store has an epidemic for it on every shift. So it's happened to him. It's happened to everybody in the store. They've had stuff stolen on our shift multiple times. So it's not just me it's happened to. But I decided, you know what, I'm going to tell him. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. And since I know it's these people, so we can ban them from the store. We have a little wall of shame where we have pictures of people that have stolen, and we could do that with them because I know they stole it. So anyway, I tell him, and a couple of days later, he's reviewing the camera. But here's the big thing that's really toxic. This is where the toxicity has escalated to a point. The other little things I could deal with, the alcoholic woman, the not being recognized, the things the GM ignores that I had told him before, trying to turn certain things against me. He's left passive aggressive notes in the office. He used to do that to the assistant manager. You know that he acts like he's leaving the note for everybody, but it's directed at you. He used to do that to the assistant manager, and that was one of the reasons why she quit after 2 years. So I was like, okay, but I'm still going to give him the benefit of the doubt, because when I started working there, he was really nice and friendly to me, really kind to me. So a lot of times people are like that, though, and you get to know them over time, and you realize there's more to them, more manipulation to them, and things like that. That's what I have realized about this man. So in any case, when he's looking at the cameras, he has another new guy, and this new guy is going to replace a girl that works on my 3 off nights, and it's his first day. He's a younger guy, and it's not that I'm against younger people, but I just want to point that out, because a lot of younger people, it seems today, like say in their 20s, there's quite a few I'm seeing now that are extremely disrespectful. I'm not saying everybody, I'm just saying there seems to be a lot now. So anyway, this guy, and anytime I meet somebody, I'm not going to judge them immediately. I'm going to see what the first impression is and go from there. So I meet the guy as I come in. He shakes my hand. His name, tells me his name. And then I go in the office. My manager's reviewing the camera, but this guy comes in there too. He's in there his very first day. He's in there looking at security footage with me and the manager. And this is something that's also toxic about this GM. He will address things in front of other people. He will address situations, personal situations with employees in front of other employees. He'll call out things in front of other employees. It's very toxic behavior to do that. I've actually had arguments in other jobs with managers and called them out for this, which I end up doing here eventually. But anyway, I'm just absorbing what's going on. So he wants me to point out the shoplifters. I do. I say, this is what's going on. And what happens is there's the one guy that was asking me about stuff for his wife. We see him and me following him, and the new guy automatically chimes in and decides to interject his opinion, which is, oh, he's distracting you. He's taking you off so they can do whatever. I wouldn't have even followed him. I wouldn't have done this. I wouldn't have whatever. I'm like sitting there biting my tongue, because for one, I can't believe he's throwing all this in there on his very first day, and I'm expecting the GM will say something. He says nothing. He lets this guy continue. So as we're watching the video more, and we're seeing these people up at the counter, the lady has got her back to us. My GM's like, well, looks like they probably cleaned you out. This is what he's saying. And the other guy's like, yeah, they took you. They got you. I would have told them to empty their pockets. I would have just told them to empty their pockets right there and to take everything out. And the GM's like, apparently in agreement. He's not saying anything. I'm like, okay, why is he not chiming in here? Because I don't think the company would want us to do this. So what happened was, I will admit, I was not out on the floor the entire time. The company prefers that we walk the floor when customers are in there, but I'm not the only one that's done this. I'm not saying I shouldn't have done it, because I'm not the only one that's not done it. But what I'm saying is there's been all this toxic behavior going on in the store for a long time. I've watched the GM not even walk the floor. I've watched him go off into the office. I've watched him when he's there. Sometimes he's working there. I come in to replace him. He's not doing what he's about to tell me I should have been doing. He's in the office. He's somewhere else where he can't see the customers at all, or he's working behind the counter when we're told not to if a customer's in there. So what happens, he's done that. The girl that drinks just sit behind the counter when people are in there. There's been people we've had come and go, work there, do whatever the hell they want. Nothing's been done about it. So I was talking to the new girl, some behind the counter, and then some I was on the floor. I wasn't back there the whole time, but what he said was, well, you did nothing. You let them steal. You was behind the counter the entire time. And he's almost yelling at me, and he's doing this in front of the new guy. After the new guy done mouthed off to me, telling me he'd shake everybody down, basically, and the GM said nothing to him, now I'm being attacked by the GM saying I did nothing at all, and I just let them steal. And I said, no, I didn't just let them do anything. Yes, I was behind the counter some, but I was also out there when they were asking me questions and wanted me to show them the thing they stole. I mean, I took them down the aisle. They were asking me questions about stuff. I said I was also helping the other guy. And in fact, when I was helping these people, the new girl was the one totally standing behind the counter the entire time. So, am I completely right in the situation? No, but I wasn't completely doing what he said either. And the fact is, even when we've been on the floor before, walking, people still steal and get away with it. Because you just can't be right up under them. And that was something else. He said, well, you need to be right there. He tried to do this when I started working there. Wants you to be like peeking over the side at them and being right there. Thing I find with that is people get pissed and they want to leave the store. They won't buy shit. So it's just hard in a big store. The store is probably the size of a small Dollar General. And they got one person. They want one person to always operate it. To me, you would need 3 people in there. One on each side of the store, one behind the counter, and you'd still have theft because there's no loss prevention. The cameras record, but they're not watching live. There's nobody watching live. So that's something they should probably do. Maybe have a security company watching live, or if they really want to prevent it, you'd have to pay for a security guard or pay for a loss prevention person. But they don't want to do all that, so there's a lot of theft. So anyway, this escalated because this new guy acted the way he did. He was allowed to act that way, and then the GM goes off and says what he says when he's been guilty himself of totally ignoring customers. And I've seen a lot of toxic behavior with new hires go on in this place and for a while now. And I could see more and more why the assistant manager, even with her flaws, they were not near as bad as they seem looking back on it, because she followed policies, sometimes overdid them. I'll say that. She would overdo policies, but she followed them, and she was dependable, and she was at work, and she was on time, and you didn't have to worry about her doing crazy stuff. So what happened is this really did not sit well with me. This new guy struck me in a way as hypermasculine and fake and a know-it-all, and with the GM not saying anything to him, I could see a toxic dynamic going on there. Why is he not saying anything to this guy? I didn't understand it. I could not understand it. It started making me, I will admit, a little paranoid, because I'll say what's on my mind. I've told the GM when things aren't going right before. I say, I'll speak up. Sometimes he's not like that. You find that in jobs where there's some toxicity too. A lot of times you say something to management about something that needs to be corrected. They don't want to hear that. Sometimes you give an opinion, it can piss them off. So I started thinking, and he had put this guy on the schedule for me to train him. So now my first interaction with this guy is him chastising me, lecturing me over how I should shake down shoplifters. And we get drug people in there. We get all kinds of people come into our store. We're not in the worst area of town, but we're not in the best area. It's kind of the cops are around a lot, but still, we get all kinds in there. You don't know who's got weapons these days. And let's think about how society is right now. The United States is volatile. I mean, anybody that's even saw a glimpse of the news would be aware that there's a lot of violence out there right now. Now, does that mean you got to walk around in fear all the time? No. But am I going to sit in a store and tell people that, even if I know they stole, am I going to approach them and try to have a battle with them over the stolen items? I am not. It's just not going to happen. It's dangerous. You get hurt. I don't get paid for that. That was what I told him too. I said, when he was telling me about, I need to do this, I need to do that, I said, dude, I don't get paid. None of us do, or you, to be out here playing security with our lives. People stab you. They'll shoot you over anything a lot of times. You don't know what kind of mindset they're in. And it pissed him off. And what he does when he gets pissed off, when I've confronted him before, is a silent treatment. So then he gets childish. It becomes a silent treatment, he turns red in the face, and he leaves. And this has happened before. This was the worst incident. He got the guy clocked out, though. The guy that mouthed off to me, he got him clocked out first as soon as possible, because I guess it embarrassed him. He embarrassed me. And no, I wasn't trying to get revenge and embarrass him, but I'm sure I did embarrass him because I fought back. It's like, I'm not taking this shit. So, I mean, I've been abused in a lot of workplaces, and many people have, and it definitely is triggering experience. So now I'm getting anxiety because I'm going to have to now work with this dude on 2 nights. And I figure I've already gotten a good judge of his character. If he's going to act this way, then he's probably going to act this way on other things. He's not going to be trained. So what happened was, he trained 3 nights with the girl that was quitting. He trained with the GM when that incident happened, and he trained 3 nights with the other girl. Well, I've always got kind of a feeling that girl don't like me either. She's friends with the GM. She's personal friends with the GM. She works at a bank though too, so the job was getting too much for her. So she was going to quit and just work at her bank. But she's personal friends with the GM, and I got the vibe in recent times, I just don't think she likes me. So I tend to think there was probably talk about me. I can't prove that, but you get intuitive feelings about things. You know when somebody's not liking you and they're personal friends with a person you're having conflict with, and then this new guy, he tries to come across likable to people. He wants to impress women. So that's another thing I'm recognizing with the hypermasculinity. He's very manipulative. So what happens is, I know I'm going to have to work with him. So I contemplate, being that I know this is such a toxic situation and my intuition is screaming at me that I don't need to let this go, because the GM, I got such a bad vibe about it that maybe he's even going to try to replace me with this guy. Even though I have top sales, this toxic behavior, I feel like because I've stood up to him before, that may be enough for him. It's irrational, but I've seen people do many irrational things. I've seen managers do completely irrational things, ruin their marriages over sleeping with staff at their jobs. I mean, I've seen all kinds of stupid crap at workplaces that you would just shake your head at, like, what the F are you doing? So it would not surprise me that he'd want to replace me. I've seen crazier. So I'm thinking, okay, I better do something about this. So there's a complaint hotline. And I've always seen it in the break room. And I'm like, the company is nationwide. So I start thinking, okay, they want the complaint line posted in their buildings. There must be a reason for that. And I didn't want to call the regional manager because she's close to the GM. And she wrote me up one time. That was a toxic situation where she wrote me up over a $22 mistake without going into too much detail on that. It was like a type of void situation on a return that I hadn't been properly trained on. That's another problem with the company. Well, at least the store I work in. That's what I should say. Of training. Training is poor for the most part. It's chaotic. Some people get trained like how they should and some don't. Like even the alcoholic woman was only trained 2 days and said, okay, run the store. And it's not, so I guess what I'm saying is even though she drinks on the job, not everything's her fault. But in any case, I'm thinking, okay, so the regional manager wrote me up over a mistake I wasn't properly trained on, and the GM even wasn't trained on. He even admitted to me when he was writing me up for it, said she wants a write-up on this, but I don't know how to do that either. I'm just now learning it. So I was like, okay. So I didn't feel like I could trust her. I didn't sign that write-up, by the way. I was like, I'm not signing that. So I figured she probably might be a little angry about that. And keep in mind, again, I have top sales I've had top sales over 3 different stores, including the regional manager's store. So my job performance is pretty good. I'm not saying it's perfect. Not at all. None of us are perfect, but it's pretty good. So anyway, I see the complaint line. I'm like, that might be what I need to do because, okay, I started thinking, does this company, maybe all their stores don't run this way. Maybe that's why they have a complaint line. Maybe I shouldn't judge this whole company off this GM and his regional manager in this place. Maybe it's localized what's going on here, and that's why they have a complaint line. And see, the assistant manager, she wouldn't call the complaint line. She just put her 2-week notice in. See, a lot of people do that, though. They kind of they're scared to do that for whatever reason. Some people won't do it. Well, if you're not going to quit, some people won't do it because they're afraid they're going to lose their job. I guess there's always a chance of that, of it being turned around on you, even on a higher level. But my mind is like, well, what do I got to lose? I guess lose the job, but I'm just like, it's not the end of the world. I'm like, I'm either going to sit here and put up with this crap, potentially get in a situation with someone I feel like could be violent. I really felt that about this guy too. Oh, because the reason why I felt like he could be violent is when he was lecturing me about shaking down people. He said, I'm from the streets. That's why I felt that way. He was going on about bragging about how he's from the streets, which is insecurity. All the stuff he's doing totally mirrors insecurity and fakery and just bullshit. And I know that because I've had a fake facade. He has a very fake facade, but trying to put on a very tough persona but people like that can be violent, regardless of it being fake. They'll do anything to protect that fake personality at all costs. So I decided to call the complaint line. I just called them, and the first time I didn't get a response, I called back and left a detailed message. First time I didn't leave, but just my name and the store, and for them to call me back and my phone number. Second time I said, okay, I left a detailed message and I got a call. I got a call from a lawyer, so they take this very seriously. Basically, but before I got the call from the lawyer, it's interesting because the human resources manager intercepted the call or heard the message, I guess, before the lawyer, and the human resources manager called my regional manager and said, I think this is an in-store problem you should handle. One of the people I was trying to avoid. But what the human resources manager wasn't able to stop was it still went through to the lawyer. That's where the complaint line goes. They hear these complaints. So the company, corporate part of it actually has maybe a couple of lawyers that listen to these and they call you back. But before the lawyer called me back, the regional manager called me, and she was really nice. That's the thing. She was like super nice and wanted to know what went on, and I just told her the whole story, and I said, I don't want to work with this guy. I said, it's going to be just a nightmare. I said, he's already demonstrated he's going to lecture about stuff his first day. The GM didn't stop him, so he already knows he can get away with it. And what she said was I had to work with him because he's already on the schedule, but if he causes problems, to call her and let her know. I was like, oh. Okay, but she claimed she was going to take care of the situation about, she told me that it was not company policy to stand right up under people. She also told me that HR told her that we are not to shake down people. We don't have to approach people, even if we see them steal, that our safety is of the first concern. She said if you see them steal, you can say something if you want, but we don't, our policy is your safety, so you do not have to put yourself in that position at all. And we want you to be safe, and you definitely don't ask people to empty their pockets in any case. So that was all clarified. But the GM, he lied. Basically, he would act like there are times he would never tell me any of that. It was all about stay up under people. He wouldn't say nothing to the new guy about shaking down people. It's like, oh my God. So this is a big red flag. So anyway, then the next day, the lawyer calls me, one of the lawyers for the company, and wants to know the whole story. And I tell her, and she's like, she asked me, what do you want done about this? And I just told her, I said, I just want it resolved. I said, the regional's saying I got to work with the guy. And she just said, well, if anything else happens, let me know if it more develops. So now getting to the night, it was 2 nights ago. I was supposed to work with this guy 2 nights. I worked with him half a night. So what happened basically was I went in there with a great attitude. I was like, I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt again. Maybe I'm wrong. Usually in these situations, though, I have to admit I'm not. I'm usually intuitively right about these workplace situations because I've dealt with so much trauma in workplaces and BS and hypermasculinity and narcissists, women and men narcissists for that matter, that I just see it. I see it as it's developing usually. But I said, you know what? Still yet, there may be a chance this guy is gonna, try to be reasonable. So anyway, he comes in, first thing he does, he tries to immediately, off the clock, we have a box of money in the back we have to count. He goes to counting that off the clock as soon as he comes in, and he's early, so he can't clock in yet. Immediately I had to say, don't do that. Because they put me in charge of him to train him. It's like, you can't do that. I said, you got to be clocked in. You can't clock in early. They'll write you up. If you clock in late, you can clock in 5 minutes early. I said, but even then, wait till it's time for you to count that down. He looks at me, he's like, okay, yeah, all right. I already got this piece of shit attitude going on. This hyper fake masculine tough guy, carefully curated persona going on. And I say that because I used to have these different facades too, but I was never as mean as this guy, I'll say that. I could be passive aggressive, but not to the level he's gonna go. So anyway, he proceeds to tell me when we clock in, he said, all I need to know is just how to do numbers at the end of the night. I know everything else. That's all I need. I was like, well, you're here to work with me. I have not worked with you. They put you with me for training. I said, we'll see what happens and what you know. And I said, if all goes well, I'm going to sell tonight because we make commission. I'm not going to give him all my commissions, and I don't know how he's going to act. I said, I'll let you sell tomorrow night. I'm always fair with people if I'm training them. I said, I'll sell tonight, see how you're doing on things, and then everything's well, you sell tomorrow night. So we're doing some cleaning and stuff. I'm telling him about a couple of things. The guy just keeps walking off from me. He's kind of like walk off in mid-sentence. He's like, he's just kind of like very disrespectful is what it is. Everything he's doing with me is a disdain. He has a disdain for me. and he's just walking off like he thinks he's better. He just thinks he knows he's better. He don't have to listen to shit I say. It's how he's acting. In the same token, the manager, GM, comes in because he's got to bring change to the store. Silent treatment. Looks pissed. He don't say nothing to either one of us. He don't say nothing at all. Comes in there twice with some money to put in our drawer in the back office, and he takes down the passive aggressive notes he's left in the office as well. So that's going on too. He leaves. So it's just me and the guy again. And then what happens is I'm ringing up some people. He interrupts my sale. We sell enhancement stuff too, like for erectile dysfunction, things like that. We sell pills. We sell stuff for females too, sexual arousal type stuff. So he interrupts me and he starts to proceed to tell these people that I'm talking to about the products. Again, he's hardly sold anything there. Doesn't know much about the products. He hasn't been there long. Not to say he hadn't done any of the products. I don't know. I often wonder why people in their early 20s, guys, would get hooked on any of that stuff, to be honest with you. But in any case, that's neither here nor there. But he starts to tell the people, oh, they can take more than the recommended dosages. It creates an awkward situation. I'd be like, no, don't listen to that. I said, no. And I look at him and said, what are you doing? I said, you can't be taking more than the recommended dosages. You can't, it's not a good idea. I said, I guess you can do what you want, but it's not a good idea. I said, you can hurt yourself and you have a heart attack. He just sits there nonchalant, leaned back on his stool like, he's just all cool guy. He's just a cool guy. It's so ridiculous. So anyway, I had a couple of sales like that where he did this. He did it again later on too, and I had the same situation happen. But what really created a problem was now mind you, he'd already lectured me about shaking down people and all this stuff, so I had to tell him this was one thing he didn't like. I said, look, I got clarity. I didn't tell him, I just made him aware I had spoke to somebody. I just said, hey, look, I got clarity from what we're actually supposed to be doing here on shoplifting. Don't provoke people. And this is how I was telling him. I mean, try not to be ugly to him, but at the same time stern, because of his attitude. You gotta look him in the eye and say, look, you can't be provoking people. I said, that is not company policy. You'll get wrote up for that. I said, I'm just letting you know. I said, we're not to stand up under him either. I said, I've already found out about all of this, and I'm just telling you that's just not something we do. Walk the floor like we're doing. Just don't be right up under him. You tell it pissed him off, but he just walked off again. But what really blew up everything was he goes and sits behind the counter. After the lecturing, knowing he's not supposed to do that, all that's been gone over, it's like he's going to do anything he can, thinking I'm just going to shrink away and cower away and not say anything to him. He goes and sits behind the counter, leans back on the stool with his phone, and I'm just like, the immaturity for one thing of this. He thinks it's the coolest thing. You can tell looking at him. I'm like, dude, this is absurd. This looks absolutely absurd. But I go over there and say, hey, you can't do that, man. You got to come out. I don't say it where the guests are hearing. I'm just low key, like, hey, man, you can't be back here. You know that. So we got to be walking the floor. You know customers are in here. Woo, did he blow up. And he got so mad. I mean, it was like everything. You could look at him, stare dark through me, and tell he was doing everything he could. Just this one instance of being directed. He's going to blow his top. He was doing everything he could not to completely blow his top. And I was like, whoa. You could feel, how you feel tension in a room. And I'm real sensitive to that kind of stuff. And I'm surprised the 2 customers that were in there didn't leave, because he starts slamming doors, and he starts taking trash out that don't need to be taken out. Bags are almost empty, but he's taking the trash out. He's rattling it around. He's like, and he's making the bags pop, and then he goes outside. We're not even supposed to take trash out at night, but I'm just like, okay, this is going to be a problem. I didn't know what to do, because if I call somebody right there in front of him, it's going to blow up. So I ring up these customers, which again, he interrupts me on. We went through that again. I said, okay, I'm gonna lock the store for lunch. I was hoping he would leave for lunch, and he did. He decided to leave for lunch. That's when I called Amber, the regional manager. I said, look, he's almost violent. He's like on the verge of violence over, I told her the whole story. I said, simple direction. He don't want to hear nothing I say. There's a hatred there. I don't know why there's so much hatred there, except for the fact that I challenged his positions on shoplifting. I challenged his positions on everything he's doing, but not in a vile way. Just directing him, telling him, hey, I'm here to train you, not just to be here. And that's why you're paired with me. So it makes me think the GM said things to him, and maybe the girl he's training with, is friends with the GM, said things to him, and I'm even thinking the new girl I train may even be friends with him. I mean, it's just crazy. Even though I really don't know that for sure. So anyway, she came up with a plan to de-escalate it. She called HR. And what she did is I texted her when he pulled back up, and when he clocked in, she called the store. And I answered like I didn't know who it was. She wanted to talk to him. She told him, hey, we're real slow tonight. I'm looking at the sales for today. We'll just have you come back. You can go ahead and clock out. We're just not going to have you come back until next week when he trains with the GM for 2 nights. So I don't have to work with him anymore. That's how we got him out of the store. But that is one of the worst situations I've dealt with in a long time. And I left a message for the lawyer too, because she wanted to stay updated. I don't know what's going to totally happen here. I suspect the guy won't last long, because now the GM's been talked to as well. So whatever he was going to do to try to get away with keeping this guy employed here, he's going to have to make the guy follow policy. So I'm interested to know, will the guy blow his top at him too? I mean, will he just do what he wants? But what I think, honestly, is that the guy warmed his way into the job knowing he would be working there alone. He's got this hyper-masculine personality. It's an adult store. He's immature, young guy, thinks he's the coolest thing walking, thinks he's God's gift to women, and I just think that he honestly think he's going to work there to try to pick up girls. That's what I think he's trying to do, and he's just not going to do his job. And I say that because of the way he just sat behind the counter after he lectured me, and he's been told about policies, and I'm just like, oh man, we got one of these on our hands. But the regional manager's aware. The lawyer probably is going to make sure they keep an eye on it. So in any case, I'm trying to get out of this place. I guess that's what this is all coming to a head with. I just think I've outgrown the place. The energy has shifted. I'm in a better place than I was a year and a half ago when I started therapy. For any of you who've watched the channel, you would know I've been in therapy for a long time and deal with gender dysphoria, and I've been working more and more to try to integrate it more, my male and feminine, trying to integrate that more and more. And I have videos on here discussing some of those different things. But if you're in a toxic workplace, you can do what you want. My advice is, though, that if you're dealing with similar situation like me, or you're dealing with toxic employees and you can't go to your manager, or you can't do this or that, it's either better to just leave the job, or at least try to do what I do and go higher up. Sometimes going higher up, you'll find out the whole place is toxic. But sometimes you'll get a pleasant surprise and find out the upper structure doesn't even know what's going on. And I think that's what I stumbled upon here. I do think I stumbled upon the upper end not knowing this is happening in one of their stores. And that's probably why they have that complaint line. But most people are scared to go to that level because of anxiety. And maybe they really desperately need the job, so they don't do it in fear that they'll be retaliated against. But I wasn't going to let this ride. And I think it's because of bullies, too. I dealt with bullies all through my childhood. And got a video on here about when I lived in Marion, Arkansas, and I dealt with bullies. Video when I skateboarded with Damien Eccles and I dealt with bullies there. Some of the that was the worst place I ever dealt with them. But I've dealt with bullies in childhood, bullies teenage years. In Marion, I dealt with bullies in workplaces. I've had yelling matches with managers before in workplaces over the bullying, over the narcissism. So I've had a lot of workplace traumas, and now I think it's about time I am looking to get out of this place. So I would just say, I would not put up with the toxicity if you don't have to. It's not worth your health. It's not worth your mental state. It's not worth going in and you're feeling your stomach churn because you don't know if somebody's going to attack you. And the thing is, even if we get this guy out of there, I think things will be a little better just because the company's aware now, but it's still not to say we won't get another toxic individual. And what it makes me think about is the woman manager was stabbed at McDonald's, if you've heard about that. That happened a while back. An employee didn't like taking direction, didn't like some of the stuff the manager was telling her, and went back up there and stabbed her. Or just the violence that's going on in society right now. Like, I think of Irina Zarutska and just the crazy stuff people are doing. So I would also say be careful out there. But if you got these kind of toxic situations and you can get out of it, man, I just say try to get out of it. Anyway, that's all I have for now. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.